where you take someone who's so good, so proficient, so successful at doing what he does on the cultural and political side, and you take it a notch up to far more important existential questions, doctrinal questions, religious questions, and say, well, there was this guy named C.S. Lewis who actually had some really good stuff on this. And go, wait a minute, that's it? That's all we got on the most important topic that there is, the objective of this life, getting to heaven? It's weird. Like it's like, how are you satisfied with this? Hey kids, how you doing? If you're not my kid or relative, I hope this will be productive for you because I'm going to do something a little bit different today and take an angle that I don't see being taken often online. You're looking here at Matt Walsh, who's all the rage right now, being one of the best commentators, formerly of The Blaze, and now The Daily Wire. Looks like a pretty solid dude, and he's hated by all the right people, so that's a plus. His new movie, Am I Racist?, is doing very well. Have you guys in the audience seen it? If you have, comment. Let me know if you liked it. I'm hearing it's very, very well written, very entertaining. And I hear because we had planned to go see it, but we've been traveling a lot for fall break, been out of town and have not had a chance to get to the theater, which we used to do all the time, but honestly, can't remember the last time we went. So it's interesting times in 2024. Now, a while back, I saved a video so that I could review it. I mean, a while back. And it is Matt Walsh, who, like Charlie Kirk, has gotten very proficient and made a career out of, air quotes, owning the libs. Now, there's no doubt he's a powerhouse when it comes to debating culture, politics, social issues, etc. He can dismantle arguments with razor-sharp logic, relentless fact-checking, bold convictions. I've seen him effortlessly, and I mean effortlessly, paint wokes into an intellectual corner that they can't get out of using a series of simple, logical, deadpan questions. But as I'm going to demonstrate, certain topics, and one in particular, cause the debate to take discussion to take a notable shift. Now, I covered one of my hypotheses for this in my last video about the doctrinal food pyramid. You should check it out. But my next video is covering Charlie Kirk's recent viral Jubilee video, where as soon as I saw it, I thought I have to put these two videos out. Charlie actually had the tables turned on him and ended up looking like the woke ADIQ frontal lobe challenge college student who absolutely had no response to the questions he was being asked.
Didn't answer the question.
I did.
No, you didn't say how he could desire something imperfect.
Well, God can
We'll
do
talk
anything.
about that later.
God can do anything. So
Even something logically contradictory?
it's not logically contradictory.
To desire something imperfect.
Can an unstoppable object hit a unequal force?
You don't want to miss that one. It's going to be a little spicy. So today's video, I'm going to set the groundwork by exploring why someone who comes fully prepared when it comes to gender ideology, free speech, the role of government, or any other political, cultural, philosophical argument du jour can be severely lacking when it comes to clarity and force of conviction related to much more important and impactful facts, namely those things which pertain to eternal questions, eternal values. The trademark logic, empirical data, and often predictable moral outrage are uncharacteristically absent. So my question for today's video is, why is this? What causes it? That's what we're going to explore. My short answer before we get into the video is that religion and the eternities are different. These topics transcend the typical data and tangible realities, so they require a different kind of discussion and different questions. They dive deep into the mysteries of existence, faith, the nature of God, the afterlife. Here, even a confident debater like Walsh kind of takes a step back. So watch this and tell me if you see the same Matt Walsh that does Am I a Racist? The same Matt Walsh that made What is a Woman? All right, this is a chat with Matt Walsh talking to Ben Shapiro when the topic of religion comes up. Here we go.
You're known for not only being very caustic, but obviously being very religious. So what is your religious background? We'll get into religion a little bit more deeply a little bit later in the show, but what's your religious background? What's your belief system?
Yeah, I'm Catholic. So I grew up very Catholic, very conservative Catholic. I've got, 5 brothers and sisters, and one of my sisters is a nun now. So that's the kind of Catholic family that we have. But I grew up in a very kind of liberal area, going to public school. So you had to, your parents had to instill in you the ability to defend, not just the ability to defend your beliefs, but also the willingness and sort of finding joy in that argument. So I think that's kind of where I got it from.
And how
honestly, I would love to hear him do this quite a bit more personally. We're seeing the trend in culture bend back towards religion, an interest in it, devotion to it, people finding their roots. And I don't listen to Matt's podcast regularly, so I don't know if he does this or if he doesn't do it, but I feel like I don't hear it. So if I get it wrong, tell me in the comments.
How did all of this impact on your politics? So you're a conservative, obviously. You were not a super pro-Trump conservative during 2016. So how does your worldview shape your political views?
Well, for me, the first objective for everyone is to get to heaven, right? That's the first objective, is our spiritual fulfillment. So that to me is number one before you get to politics or anything like that. And this is, one of the problems I see in the conservative movement now is it seems like it's not really grounded in anything, like maybe it used to be, grounded in those deeper kind of spiritual moral truths. So I think it's got to be kind of ground.
I just want to interject here. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but it reminds me of the one political convention I went to, actually when Charlie Kirk was getting TPUSA off the ground, when I met Kevin Jackson from the Black Series, kind of like the male pre-Candace Owens. And he said, no matter what these people say, no matter what they do, no matter what they talk about, just know it's all about the money.
Ground up from there. Like what are your fundamental beliefs? And that is, why are we here? What's the point of life? What's the point of any of this? I think those are the questions you have to be able to answer. And then once you can answer those questions, then you sort of build your political framework on top of that.
So
Now, some of you are going to take this the wrong way. That's okay. I love Catholics. These are questions that most don't seem to be able to answer. So let's see if Matt can give us some answers.
religious point of view, and you say that the goal is to get to heaven, are you a belief-based person? I mean, is it that you believe in Christ and therefore you go to heaven, or is it a works-based thing? Because obviously this is sort of a differentiator between Judaism and Christianity in some iterations.
Yeah, I think, well, and I don't mean to dismiss like 500 years of fighting between Protestants and Catholics, but I kind of think that at least between Protestants and
Oh, that was funny.
Catholics, the works versus faith dichotomy, it's a kind of a misunderstanding, because I think we actually generally agree in that. I certainly don't believe that the whole point of life is just to intellectually assent to the proposition that Jesus Christ is Lord and there is a God. And, so people will say that all you have to do is believe in Jesus, or all you have to do is believe in God. I definitely don't believe that. But
So I think he's absolutely right about this. Catholicism certainly has the upper hand here on Protestantism, as far as what you do being more important than what you tell people they need to believe. That was a byproduct of the creeds, of the heretical battles between different belief systems. And my biggest issue with it is if you tell people that what they do doesn't matter, then they'll start acting as if what they do doesn't matter. And they'll start focusing on their beliefs over their actions, which is the world we live in today.
if we want to talk about faith, okay, well, you have to put your faith in God. That is more than an intellectual exercise. That is something that you do with your whole life and your whole mind and soul and body, that you're investing yourself in this belief. And that includes works, but it's not as though, you give a certain amount to charity and you help old ladies across the street and you go to heaven. It's not as simple as that. So it's
What is it then?
kind of a combination of the two. The way that I see it is it's sort of like, if God is a bridge into heaven, into the afterlife, you can't just walk up to the bridge and say, yes, I believe that the bridge is there. I assent to the existence of the bridge, and then just go and sit on the other side of the bridge and not cross it. You actually have to trust the bridge and with your own effort, walk across it over the abyss. And so I think it's that's what faith is.
Interesting point here. I just had a discussion with someone on YouTube the other day about theosis. And I mentioned that I listened to Pago and Father Mike and some other guys talking about what it is. And there's always a lot of analogizing, right? Which is another way of saying we're not really sure, we don't know, but this is what we think it's like, which is not really an answer. I mean, I think the bridge thing sort of works, but that means that once you bridge the gap, you're there. You're either there or you're not there, or you're on the bridge. And those are very non-specific descriptors, but the gospel is not a bridge. The gospel is more like, help me out here, Littlefinger. What's the gospel like?
It's a ladder.
It's not a bridge. It's a ladder.
comes to your view of the afterlife, what cultivated that? Where do you get your view of heaven? What do you think heaven looks like, and what makes you believe that there is something after we die?
Okay, great question, Ben. And I got to say, I was talking to my wife about this. This conversation between them was a little meh for me. Like if I had a chance to talk about this with Ben or talk about this with Dennis Prager, we would have a very interesting, intellectually deep, rigorous conversation. And so now he's giving Matt a chance to take him down. So think about the am I a racist? What is a woman? And compare the answers you get there and the deep questions that get people to kind of the light to go off and think really hard about what they believe. This is a core doctrine. If the objective is to get to heaven, if that's the most important thing, someone says, how do you get there? Like, this is your chance to take them down. This is a buying question.
Well, I get it from my faith primarily, but of course, when you read the Bible, there isn't a lot of, in terms of a description of what the afterlife is actually going to look like, and everything that it entails. So, I think if you have to look at Christian philosophy through the age.
Uh-oh, this is how we go woke. Look, he mentions there really isn't any description of the afterlife, but Paul is asked specifically about the afterlife in terms of the form of the body. And he answers very specifically. Now, I never hear, ever, and I say never in bold, never hear anyone bring up scriptures like that when talking about the afterlife or the resurrection. I've heard Mike Winger mock them while citing Aquinas about the Greek or Jewish understanding of the different heavens. I've heard Taylor Marshall be a little more charitable in the topic, but completely botch his answer. But I don't think I've ever heard anyone expound on the specific doctrine taught here with any clarity that wasn't a member of the LDS faith. They typically do something along with what Heiser jokes about here of standard sectarian pastor responses.
We're just going to skip this. He goes, it's just so strange. I don't know what's going on here. We're just going to skip it. And he did. Like, this wasn't even there.
So what's a little odd to me, and I've probably said this in other videos, is that when discussing heaven, Walsh admits that we have to get away from the Bible and go to Christian philosophy, that this thing isn't even biblical. And the first and only thing he decides to elucidate his understanding of it is?
For me, in terms of my thinking about the afterlife, for me, the most influential thing that I've read besides the Bible would be C.S. Lewis' Great Divorce. I don't know if you've read that. I don't know how biblical it really is, but what I like about,
Well, at least he's honest.
but in that book is what he does is he's able to really illustrate how it is that a person might choose hell instead of heaven. Because the only thing that makes sense for me in terms of hell is, well, it's not so much that God sends you there. Even if you really want to go to heaven, God says, no, you did this, you did that, that was wrong, and now you have to go roast in the eternal fires for 50 trillion years, and then you haven't even started at that point. So that sort of version has never really made sense to me. What does make sense, and what you'll hear Christians say a lot, is, well, no, God doesn't send you to hell, you choose it. Okay. Well, all right, then it seems more just, but what does it mean to choose hell? How could anyone ever choose hell when they know that eternal joy is on offer? And anyway, in the book Great Divorce, I think he does a good job of showing what that might sort of look like, or why a person might actually choose hell rather than heaven.
Now, see, he didn't say what it would look like. He didn't describe anything about it. He's asking philosophical questions about why people behave the way they behave. So it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. And this is the point of the video where you take someone who's so good, so proficient, so successful at doing what he does on the cultural and political side, and you take it a notch up to far more important existential questions, doctrinal questions, religious questions, and say, well, there was this guy named C.S. Lewis who actually had some really good stuff on this. And go, wait a minute, that's it? That's all we got on the most important topic that there is, the objective of this life, getting to heaven? It's weird. Like, it's like, how are you satisfied with this? How is this enough? But it's kind of like, and this is the closest thing I can compare it to. I'm going to analogize here. If you're a consensus Christian, or I call it Common Core Christian, and you're arguing about the Trinity and you cite the unmoved mover, I always think that's odd. How did Aristotle become the sectarian Moses? I think I've talked about this in other videos. Paul taught that the glory differs, and he purposely made the comparison as stars differ from each other. Think about that. You look up in the air and go, oh yeah, they're all different levels of brightness, all different levels of intensity, and there's a lot of them. Right? He's painting a picture of what it's going to look like. meaning that God has a lot of levels of joy, levels of glory, commensurate with whatever choices men and women decide to make, including what they believe and what path those beliefs take them down. You see this pattern in Scripture with each interaction, with each teaching, with each parable. So it's just odd to, without getting too far into the details of that, it's odd to me that this is satisfactory to someone like this who grew up in the religion, who has a sister who's a nun, which I did not know until I watched this, and who's speaking with Ben Shapiro, one of the most influential Jews in political media. Like, we're getting did you read that book from C.S. Lewis? Yeah, he probably has read it. It's got to be better. It's not good enough.
And it all comes from, are you interested? Are you able to find joy outside of yourself? Or have you only ever been able to figure out how to pursue your own interests? And if that's what it is, if you're only interested in yourself, then God will say, okay, well, you want yourself. That's all you want. That's all you love. Then have yourself in isolation for eternity. That's what you want.
Yeah, there's a Talmudic.
Then the question is not just did they love, but how much did they love? Again, it's about degrees. How much did you love? How much did you sacrifice? How much were you willing, like the parable of the talents, how much were you willing to multiply the blessings you've been given on behalf of others and to glorify God? There's a Book of Mormon prophet that clarified this teaching by saying that the way we treat others is a reflection of how much we love God, the level we're willing to service others. And when we're in the service of others, we're only in the service of God, meaning it's not a binary yes or no. It's a spectrum. How much are you willing to put on the table? I'm going to do another video about this on Pascal's wager, which I think is severely misused in arguments in terms of the wager being a binary. Am I willing to put something on the altar or not, versus what am I willing to put on there? How much am I willing to wager? Am I willing to go all in? And I don't think that's typically argued correctly when it is used. So kids, the point of making this video is to show that in the way I'm going to demonstrate this, even to a higher degree with Charlie Kirk, this is a very superficial surface level conversation about very, very important topics, right? And if you want to do a little test, you can go and chat GPT and ask it about the degrees of reward in heaven. Ask it about the different resurrections. You'll get John 14:2. You'll get 1 Corinthians 3:12 through 15. You'll get Matthew 16:27. You'll get Revelation 22:12. You'll get the parable of the talents. You will get Hebrews 11:35 about trying to hold out for a better resurrection. There's something here that's being completely missed in many, many conversations about salvation and exaltation and what this next world looks like. And I think it's a shame. So that's why I want to point this out. And that there was a comment here about Aquinas saying that Christ's life was willed for the good of all of us, his life and death, and continues to be. But we accept this gift in degrees. And as Paul said, it will be rewarded in degrees. God is so powerful that the only thing he cannot do is change our behavior without our consent. And this also is given in degrees. That far too many people are politically red-pilled, but spiritually blue-pilled.
This is the way.